After I married Lin Yuhan, he was always cold and distant, treating me with polite indifference. 4 years later, for the sake of his beloved Shu Qian, he took a desperate gamble, foolishly attempting to rebel against the Empress Dowager. In her fury, the Empress Dowager ordered Lin Yuhan's execution. I was implicated as well, falling from my position as the honored Princess Minghua to being stripped of my title and exiled to a frozen wasteland. I had just lost my unborn child, and combined with the trauma of my demotion, I finally drew my last breath. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in the imperial palace, hidden behind an ornate screen. Beyond the screen, the Empress Dowager was arranging a marriage for Lin Yuhan. I am Princess Minghua. From childhood, I was brought into the palace by the Empress Dowager and raised at her side, treated no differently than a true princess. The Empress Dowager cherished me dearly and once even hinted at wanting to make me the Emperor's consort. But having grown up within the palace walls, I had witnessed the harem concubines fighting viciously for favor, scheming and plotting against one another without mercy. I truly did not want to become one of them, so I respectfully declined the Empress Dowager's suggestion. Lin Yuhan, on the other hand, was the adopted son of Vice Minister Lin from the Ministry of Revenue and had recently become the top scholar in the imperial examinations. At the Qianglin banquet celebrating the new scholars, Yuhan carried himself with grace and nobility. When answering the emperor's questions, he was neither servile nor arrogant, displaying perfect composure. The emperor asked with a smile, "Such a talented young man surely already has wives and concubines waiting at home?" But Lin Yuhan replied, "This humble subject has simple desires. I only admire the mandarin ducks who mate for life. If I can marry one virtuous wife, that would be sufficient. I dare not entertain thoughts of filling my home with wives and concubines." From that moment on, my eyes fixed upon him, and I could hardly look away. I begged the Empress Dowager for 3 whole days before she finally relented, agreeing to arrange a marriage between Lin Yuhan and myself. But she remained puzzled and asked me, "Although Lin Yuhan achieved the highest honors in the examinations, he is merely the adopted son of Vice Minister Lin. His birth is not noble. Why are you so determined to marry him? I am a princess of imperial blood, a golden branch and jade leaf." While Lin Yuhan was merely from a side branch of the Vice Minister's family, there was indeed a vast difference between our stations, like heaven and earth. But after that Qianglin banquet, my heart was set on Lin Yuhan. I was determined to become that pair of mandarin ducks he spoke of, companions for life. What I didn't know was that when he spoke those words, the person in his heart was actually his younger sister, Vice Minister Lin's biological daughter, Shu Qian. He was only willing to marry me because Shu Qian intended to enter the palace as a consort. They feared that if I also married the emperor, I would use the Empress Dowager's favor to suppress Shu Qian within the harem. After my rebirth, I returned to the very moment when the Empress Dowager was bestowing the marriage upon Lin Yuhan. Beyond the folding screen, Lin Yuhan knelt on the ground, bowing to express his gratitude for the imperial marriage decree. To receive such grace from the Empress Dowager, this humble subject is overwhelmed with gratitude. Yet in his voice, there was absolutely no trace of joy. "It seems I've arrived a step too late." Disregarding all etiquette, I rushed out from behind the screen and prostrated myself before the Empress Dowager. "Your Majesty, if Scholar Lin is unwilling, perhaps we should reconsider this bestowed marriage." Hearing this, Lin Yuhan looked up sharply, his eyes filled with disbelief. The Empress Dowager was also taken aback and asked me, "Minghua, have you changed your mind?" I understood the implication behind her words. She thought I no longer wanted to marry Lin Yuhan and wished to marry the emperor instead. I felt conflicted inside. Having suffered the bitterness of being treated coldly, used, and ultimately dragged to my death by Lin Yuhan in my previous life, I never wanted to marry him again. But I also had no desire to marry the emperor and become just another concubine competing for attention in his vast harem. After thinking carefully, I could only steel myself, shake my head, and reply to the Empress Dowager. Minghua simply noticed that Scholar Lin seemed reluctant in his words and does not wish to force him. Before the Empress Dowager could respond, Lin Yuhan interrupted, "This humble subject is by no means unwilling. I swear to be of one heart with the princess forever, a vow that shall last until our hair turns white." Seeing that I had no further objections, The Empress Dowager gave her royal consent and bestowed the marriage upon us. When I walked out of the hall, a tall, elegant figure stood beneath the covered corridor. Lin Yuhan was waiting for me, his expression clearly displeased. The moment he saw me, he couldn't wait to speak. "Princess, just now in the Great Hall, when you told the Empress Dowager we might as well forget the marriage, what did you mean by that? Such jokes might be acceptable between us in private, but how could you say such things in front of the Empress Dowager?" He probably assumed I was still that foolish girl from before who was completely devoted to him, that I was merely playing coy to get his attention. I darkened my expression as well. "Scholar Lin, don't take this princess for a fool. I know perfectly well why you agreed to marry me. Besides, you and I are not yet married, so we ought to observe proper etiquette. How dare you use such a questioning tone with this princess? Aren't you afraid I will punish you for disrespect?" It was the first time Lin Yuhan had been addressed by me in such a severe tone, and having his inner thoughts exposed so directly, his expression changed repeatedly before he finally lowered his head. Yes, this humble subject acknowledges his mistake. In this life, since I cannot escape the fate of marrying Lin Yuhan, I absolutely will not pour my heart and soul out for him again, only to end up implicated and sent to my death. The next day, the Grand Tutor's wife invited the noble ladies from various families to her residence to admire the flowers. Lin Yuhan heard I was at the Grand Tutor's residence and specially sent someone to deliver an ornate lacquer box, claiming it was to apologize for offending me in the palace the previous day. He was making such a spectacle of this gift. Clearly, he wanted to put on a show of us being a loving couple in front of everyone. I opened the lacquer box to find an exquisite golden hairpin adorned with dangling ornaments. All the ladies knew about the Empress Dowager arranging my marriage to Lin Yuhan, so when they heard about this gift, they immediately crowded around. Just this lacquer box alone is quite exquisite. Scholar Lin really put thought into this. The princess and Scholar Lin aren't even married yet, but your relationship is already so intimate. It truly makes everyone envious. With everyone chiming in one after another, I developed quite a headache. Seeing that the Grand Tutor's wife seemed to admire this hairpin, I said, "Madam, I see the peony carved on this hairpin is dignified and luxurious. It suits you perfectly. Why don't I present it to you as a gift?" Before the Grand Tutor's wife could respond, Shu Qian strolled in leisurely. She spotted the hairpin in my hand at once and giggled. "That hairpin of yours looks so familiar, princess. I assume Brother Yuhan gave it to you? I originally commissioned this for myself, but I didn't expect a peony made of gold to look so gaudy. It didn't suit me at all. I never thought Brother Yuhan would turn around and give it to you, princess. It actually matches you quite well." She raised her eyebrows with a smirk, clearly waiting to watch me make a fool of myself. I didn't even need to speak. Her words had already offended the Grand Tutor's wife. The Grand Tutor's wife turned her head and asked the maid serving beside her, "This young lady who arrived so late, which family does she belong to?" Vice Minister Lin held a third-rank position, so there was no way the Grand Tutor's wife didn't know his daughter. She simply wanted to deliberately take Shu Qian down a peg. After the maid replied, the Grand Tutor's wife nodded slowly. "Since Miss Shu is the daughter of Vice Minister Lin, Princess Minghua is your future sister-in-law. Allow me to speak frankly based on my years. An elder sister-in-law is like a mother, so Miss Shu ought to show Princess Minghua more respect." Shu Qian had to swallow this humiliation. She dared not talk back to the Grand Tutor's wife and felt too awkward to simply get up and leave, so she could only turn her head away. I smiled and stepped forward, plucked a sprig of crabapple blossom that was blooming beautifully, and pinned it in the Grand Tutor's wife's hair. "Madam, no matter how well the peony on this hairpin is carved, it is lifeless after all. It cannot compare to this crabapple blossom still bearing dewdrops, crystal clear and fresh. It couldn't be more suitable for your hair. As for that hairpin, I'll take the liberty of rewarding it to the maid by your side." A deep blush gradually surfaced on Shu Qian's averted face. Early the next morning, Lin Yuhan brought Shu Qian along and came storming to the princess's manor to confront me. As soon as he saw me, his eyebrows furrowed so tightly they practically formed a knot, and he squeezed out words through gritted teeth. "Princess, if you didn't care for the hairpin I gifted you, that would be one thing. But why did you have to use it to humiliate Sister Qian in front of everyone? Yesterday, Sister Chen suffered such humiliation at the Grand Tutor's manor. Since returning home, she hasn't had a sip of tea or water, and last night she even developed a fever. I glanced at Shu Qian, who was following daintily behind Lin Yuhan. Her face was pale, she wore no makeup, and she indeed looked unwell. She timidly tugged at the hem of Yuhan's robe. "Brother Yuhan, please let it go. I only blame my lowly status for not being worthy of the princess and the Grand Tutor's wife. Even the hairpin you gave me is looked down upon by everyone." Before she finished speaking, she swayed as if about to collapse. Lin Yuhan hurriedly supported her by the waist, guided her to a chair, and comforted her softly. "You sit here and rest. I will definitely obtain justice for the grievances you've suffered." Turning his head, he glared at me. "Princess, the imperial physician said Sister Qian's fever is entirely because she felt wronged and the frustration became trapped in her chest. Just apologize to her for yesterday's incident, and I'll overlook the matter of you giving away the hairpin I gifted you to a servant." I gave a faint smile. I wasn't aware which imperial physician possesses such miraculous abilities to diagnose feeling wronged. Scholar Lin might as well inform me. I simply must ask the emperor to grant him the title of Grand National Healer. I wonder, did he diagnose exactly what grievance Miss Shu suffered? Was it that in front of all the officials' wives, she announced the hairpin you gave me was one she had rejected for being gaudy? Or was it that she arrived late, failed to greet the ladies upon entering, and instead spoke rudely to her future sister-in-law? Or was it that when the Grand Tutor's wife couldn't tolerate such behavior and offered a few words of guidance, she simply turned her head away without responding? Lin Yuhan unconsciously turned back to glance at Shu Qian. Presumably, he didn't know the full details of what had transpired. As I continued speaking, my expression darkened further. The dignified daughter of a vice minister's family, displaying such lack of manners before all the noble families. If word spreads, I fear everyone will mock the vice minister's household for its failure in upbringing. The Grand Tutor's wife couldn't tolerate such behavior, so she offered correction. If Scholar Lin believes that was inappropriate, feel free to go to the Grand Tutor's manor and demand an explanation yourself. The Grand Tutor was the Emperor's own teacher, a role model for all scholars throughout the realm. As the top scholar, how would Lin Yuhan dare suggest the Grand Tutor's wife was wrong? He stood beside Shu Qian, his originally fair face gradually turning red from the roots of his ears. Shu Qian slumped in the chair, sobbing pitifully. Seeing this, Lin Yuhan's heart ached terribly. "Princess, why must you be so aggressive? Even if Sister Qian made mistakes, she's already so ill. What harm is there in simply apologizing to her? If you insist on refusing, then I cut him off. Then what? Break off the engagement? Nothing could be better. I'll trouble Scholar Lin to explain the situation clearly to the Empress Dowager and ask Her Majesty to retract the decree. This princess awaits your good news." After saying this, I waved my hand at the maid. "See the guests out." Naturally, Lin Yuhan did not ask the Empress Dowager to retract her decree, and our wedding date soon arrived. On the wedding night, dressed in the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes, I sat alone on the bridal bed. The dragon and phoenix candles in the room cast flickering shadows. Even through the red veil covering my head, I could see the wavering candlelight. I waited and waited, just as I had in my previous life. In my past life, I sat there numbly for an entire night, but Lin Yuhan never came. It wasn't until broad daylight the next morning that he appeared outside the door, looking apologetic as he said to me, "Princess, I drank too much wine last night and didn't want to disturb you, so I rested in the side wing." What I didn't know then was that he had spent the entire night in that wing room drinking wine while gazing at a portrait of Shu Qian. I believed his excuse completely at the time and immediately went to the kitchen myself to prepare a bowl of hangover soup for him. Lin Yuhan didn't appreciate the gesture though. Instead, he frowned and said, "You are a princess of noble birth. Why must you work in the kitchen yourself? If word gets out and outsiders learn of this, it would make my Hanlin residence appear shabby and lacking in servants." After becoming the top scholar, Lin Yuhan had entered the Hanlin Academy according to custom, assuming a 7th rank position as a Hanlin compiler. It was a modest official post with no real power. He cared deeply about his reputation and was terrified of people pointing fingers and calling him inadequate. But to my ears back then, I thought he was showing concern for me, which was why he didn't want me laboring in the kitchen. Looking back now, I realize what a fool I was, blindly letting affection cloud my judgment and obscure my vision. But this time, I don't plan on waiting around like a fool anymore. I lifted my veil and was just about to instruct the maid to prepare for bed when the door was pushed open. Lin Yuhan walked in carrying a food box. He seemed slightly startled to see that I had already lifted my veil, but quickly composed himself. "Princess, I've kept you waiting. You must be hungry. I went to Luxiang Pavilion specifically to buy freshly baked osmanthus cakes. Please have some." I hadn't expected that even before we were properly married, Lin Yuhan would know I loved eating osmanthus cakes from Luxiang Pavilion. He must have inquired with the servants attending me beforehand. However, I didn't reach out to take the food box, only saying coolly, "The prince consort now holds a different status. Things like personally going to pastry shops to buy snacks, you shouldn't do them in the future. If word gets out, it would be beneath your dignity as a consort." Lin Yuhan's hand holding the food box froze in midair, neither extending forward nor withdrawing, an awkward expression on his face. I covered my mouth and yawned lightly. "If the prince consort doesn't mind, please rest in the side wing tonight. Early tomorrow morning, I need to enter the palace to assist the Empress Dowager with the imperial selection. I must rest early." Tomorrow was the selection of young women to enter the palace, and Shu Qian was determined to be chosen. That was precisely why Lin Yuhan had brought the osmanthus cakes, deliberately trying to curry favor with me in hopes I would put in a good word for her during the selection. How could I not understand his intentions? The emperor turned 18 this year, but the harem remained empty. Even the position of empress was vacant. Selecting young women to fill the emperor's harem was the imperial family's top priority this year. I knew this was also a sensitive matter for the Empress Dowager. Since the emperor ascended the throne at age 3, the Empress Dowager had been acting as regent. In recent years, as the emperor came of age, whispers of criticism gradually arose in court, and a faction supporting the emperor's direct rule had quietly formed. The first thing this emperor's faction sought was to appoint an empress. Once the empress was installed and the harem stabilized, the second thing they would undoubtedly demand was for the Empress Dowager to return governing power to the emperor. So when the Empress Dowager asked me earlier, "Minghua, how many young women do you think would be appropriate to select?" I took the hint and replied, "Your Majesty, if you ask me, regarding the number of concubines selected for the harem, simply leave it to the emperor's preference. Our emperor isn't a man of excessive indulgence anyway." Then I changed my tone regarding the empress position. As for the empress, I believe the Duke of Anghua's second daughter would be excellent. She has been well educated and sensible since childhood, dignified and virtuous, truly possessing the bearing befitting the mother of the nation. The Duke of Anghua was the Empress Dowager's own brother. Choosing his daughter, the Empress Dowager's own niece, to be empress would undoubtedly consolidate the Empress Dowager's power. My words went straight to her heart. The Empress Dowager nodded with a smile. "In that case, come and assist me on the day of the selection." The next day was the selection ceremony. I accompanied the Empress Dowager and watched over 100 candidates pass before us like a revolving display, not returning to my manor until after dark. As soon as I entered the residence, Lin Yuhan approached to meet me, his face dark as storm clouds. "Princess, I heard that at today's selection, the emperor took an immediate liking to Sister Qian and intended to make her empress, but then suddenly changed his mind and made the second daughter of the Duke of Anghua's family empress instead. Is this true?" He was absolutely correct. During today's selection ceremony before the throne, as soon as Shu Qian appeared delicate as a willow swaying in the wind, she won the emperor's favor. The emperor gave a meaningful look to the attendant beside him, signaling him to present Shu Qian with the jade rui scepter representing the position of empress. Just then, the Empress Dowager coughed lightly. I stood in attendance behind her, smiling knowingly as I said to the emperor, "Your Majesty, there are still several beauties yet to be seen. I hear the Minister of Personnel's daughter and the Duke of Anghua's daughter are both among the candidates. Why not view them all before making your decision?" The emperor paused, then nodded his agreement. In the end, the position of empress fell to the second daughter of the Duke of Anghua's family. The emperor selected another dozen or so candidates as concubines, and among them was Lin Yuhan's beloved sister, Shu Qian. I deliberately took my seat first, saying idly, after evaluating candidates all day, my throat is parched from speaking. The maid beside me hurriedly poured a cup of tea, but before she could hand it to me, Lin Yuhan snatched it away and threw it to the ground, where it shattered. He no longer suppressed his anger, shouting at me loudly, "Today, the emperor clearly intended to make Sister Qian empress, yet you spoke up to stop it. What are your intentions? I know you've always held a grudge against Sister Qian and me, but since I've already married you, why won't you leave her alone? Why did you have to ruin her chance at becoming empress?" I raised my hand and delivered a solid slap across Lin Yuhan's face, cutting off the rest of his words. I shook out my hand, which stung from the impact. "Has the prince consort calmed down now? Since you became the top scholar, surely you understand reason. Appointments should be based on merit, let alone selecting the mother of the nation. No matter how precious your sister Qian is in your heart, in terms of birth and status, how can she compare to the daughter of the Duke of Anghua?" They had naively believed that with Lin Yuhan marrying me, there would be no one left to compete with Shu Qian for the empress's position. How foolish. The Empress Dowager was shrewd and calculating. How could she allow the position of empress to fall to an unrelated outsider? Without me, there was still her own niece. Lin Yuhan calmed down and recognized this logic, yet he remained indignant and retorted, "The daughter of the Duke of Anghua relies on nothing but the Empress Dowager's backing. Governance of the nation should ultimately be wielded by the emperor himself." Not long after becoming top scholar, Lin Yuhan was exceptionally promoted to the 5th-rank position of vice-censor-in-chief. He assumed the emperor personally valued his talent, unaware it was actually the Empress Dowager showing favor to me by promoting my husband. What was laughable was that despite it clearly being the Empress Dowager's grace, he gradually became a staunch member of the Empress faction, from then on determined to force the Empress Dowager to relinquish power. Lin Yuhan closed in on me step by step, the venom in his eyes unmistakable. "Striking your husband, I wonder which rule of wifely virtue that falls under. The princess is so arrogant simply because she has the Empress Dowager as her backing. After the Empress Dowager returns power to the emperor, I wonder if the princess will still show any regard for me, her husband." I held my head high, facing him directly. If that day ever comes, the prince consort is welcome to write me a letter of divorce. Seeing him walk further and further down the suicidal path of offending the Empress Dowager, I could only choose to protect myself. Before Shu Qian entered the palace, I moved first, going into the palace ahead of time to see the supervising eunuch of the Palace Domestic Service Bureau. I gestured toward a palace maid following beside me and said, "Eunuch, when consort Shu enters the palace, please help me assign this maid to serve at her side." This maid was named Chuanxi. She was my confidant and couldn't be more sharp-witted and loyal. As long as she was assigned to Shu Qian's palace, she would surely gain Shu Qian's trust and gather valuable information for me. Having grown up by the Empress Dowager's side, everyone in the palace showed me considerable respect. Since I was asking and it wasn't a difficult matter, how could they refuse? The supervising eunuch agreed immediately. "Rest assured, princess. This lowly one will definitely arrange it properly." Leaving the palace, I headed straight for Qingjing Temple outside the city. In my past life, after Shu Qian entered the palace, she never cut off contact with Lin Yuhan. But with one being a consort and the other an outside official, it was inconvenient for them to meet. Shu Qian often left the palace in disguise, using the excuse of offering incense at Qingjing Temple to have secret trysts with Lin Yuhan. I summoned the temple's abbot, made a generous donation of over 1,000 taels of silver as incense money, and then showed him portraits of Lin Yuhan and Shu Qian. "Abbot, if these two people come to your temple, I trust you will send someone to notify me immediately. Money can move even spirits, and monks are no exception." The abbot nodded repeatedly. "Benefactor, rest assured. If the two people in these portraits visit the temple, this humble monk will certainly send word to you." After arranging all this, I finally felt at ease. Although Shu Qian wasn't selected as empress, she won the emperor's complete favor. Not only was she made a consort immediately, but she was also bestowed the title Shu, meaning virtuous and gentle. This honor was something no other concubine possessed. As for Lady Zhao, the second daughter of the Duke of Anghua who became empress, She had plain features and an extremely jealous temperament, so she failed to win the emperor's favor. If I were a man with the choice between Lady Zhao and Shu Qian placed before me, I'm afraid the one I'd choose at first glance would also be Shu Qian. In my previous life, after Shu Qian entered the palace, she was suppressed by Empress Zhao at every turn and felt deeply resentful. Relying on the emperor's favor, she intentionally went against the empress. How could the empress swallow such affronts? Using the excuse of maintaining discipline in the harem, the empress found a pretext to have someone slap consort Shu across the face in front of all the other concubines. Shu Qian was proud and arrogant. How could she endure such humiliation? She cried and made scenes day after day, throwing the entire palace into turmoil. The commotion reached the Empress Dowager's ears, making her turn pale with fury. She smashed her teacup and cursed, "A dignified imperial harem, yet it produces someone behaving like a common shrew. If word spreads, what will become of the royal family's dignity?" The emperor originally intended to stand up for consort Shu, but upon hearing that the Empress Dowager had flown into a rage, he didn't dare utter another word. He had both the empress and consort Shu given 50 strokes of the rod each and docked half a year's stipend from both of them. He also punished consort Shu with 1 month of confinement, forbidding her from stepping foot outside her palace. Consort Shu had made such a fuss for nothing and gained no benefits whatsoever, so she had no choice but to turn to Lin Yuhan, weeping and wailing for help. That night, Lin Yuhan returned to the manor wearing a dark expression. He ordered the kitchen to prepare several dishes I enjoyed and attentively invited me to sit at the table. He personally warmed a cup of wine and brought it to me. "My lady, the weather has turned cold. Drink a cup of warm wine to ward off the chill." I felt somewhat surprised and flattered. I accepted the wine cup but didn't drink from it, hesitating as I said, "I appreciate your thoughtfulness, husband, but I'm carrying a child, so I'm afraid I cannot." Lin Yuhan suddenly realized his mistake. His gaze slid past my slightly rounded belly as he slapped his own forehead. "Look at me, getting confused. My lady is with child, so you really must be extra careful." He turned to order the maid to remove my wine cup and replace it with warm tea instead. He also picked up a piece of fish belly meat with his chopsticks, carefully removed the fine bones, and placed it on my plate. He was in remarkably high spirits and spoke at length with me about what names we might give the child in the future. As he finished speaking, a trace of melancholy appeared on his face and he sighed deeply. "It's just unfortunate that Sister Qian is having such a difficult time in the palace." He looked at me meaningfully. "Sister Qian truly cannot save face this time. My lady, could you perhaps put in a good word for her before the Empress Dowager?" My hand holding the teacup trembled slightly. So he had done all of this just to persuade me to help Shu Qian out of her predicament. Yes, even the foolish me from my previous life could see through his intentions. It was simply that I couldn't bear to go against his wishes. So the next day, I truly did enter the palace to seek an audience with the Empress Dowager. For the first time in her life, the Empress Dowager became furious with me, giving me a severe scolding. Matters of the inner palace are decided by the Empress. If the Empress cannot handle them, there is the Emperor. Even I cannot interfere, let alone you, Minghua. I can see that ever since you married that Lin Yuhan, you've become utterly confused and completely forgotten your proper place. I failed to persuade the Empress Dowager, and Lin Yuhan's disappointment went without saying. Not long after, heavy snow began to fall. The snow fell thick and fast, quickly accumulating a deep layer on the ground. Lin Yuhan draped a black cloak over his shoulders and hurriedly walked out of the estate. The day before, I had seen Lin Yuhan pack a bag full of gold and silver and stay out all night. He didn't return until dawn the next morning, rested for just a brief moment, then immediately threw on his cloak and went out again. He offered me not a single word of explanation. But as if seized by a premonition, I chased after him. "Husband! Husband!" I called out to him repeatedly from behind. That dark figure showed not a shred of hesitation. In the blink of an eye, he was about to exit the main gate. Burning with anxiety, my foot slipped on the icy ground and I fell hard. Soon, a pool of blood spread out from beneath me, staining the pristine snow crimson. At that time, I was already 3 months pregnant. "My lady! My lady!" The servants were terrified and rushed to gather around me. Lin Yuhan paused for just a moment, yet he didn't look back even once. He continued stepping through the main gate and vanished from sight. That day, he did not return. A few days earlier, Shu Qian and Lin Yuhan had devised a plan to set an ambush. While the Empress Dowager was traveling outside the city to offer incense, they bribed a commander of the Imperial Guard with a large sum of money. But the commander betrayed them and informed the Empress Dowager of everything. The Imperial Guards found correspondence between the two at the Lin residence. One letter contained several lines in Lin Yuhan's own handwriting. That wicked woman monopolizes court politics and interferes with the inner palace. She deserves execution. The Empress Dowager was utterly furious. She ordered Lin Yuhan executed on the spot, and Shu Qian was given poisoned wine. Everyone in the Lin manor, along with Vice Minister Lin's entire family, was beheaded. The Empress Dowager still had some regard for our past bond. After all, she didn't take my life, only stripped me of my title and exiled me to a frozen wasteland. I had just miscarried and couldn't withstand such hardship. I fell ill and died on the journey to exile. In this life, I possess such clarity and wisdom precisely because I suffered enough in my past life and had my heart broken ruthlessly enough. Just as in my previous life, Consort Shu was heavily favored after entering the palace, and within just a few months, she became pregnant. The Empress grew jealous and went crying to the Empress Dowager every few days to complain. The Empress Dowager worried that if this continued, an outsider would bear the first imperial heir while the Empress remained childless. So she advised the Emperor, Consort Shu is already with child. It isn't appropriate for her to continue serving you. The Emperor should spread his favors more evenly, and especially visit the Empress more often. These words greatly displeased Consort Shu. Chuanxi quietly passed word to me. Consort Shu often complains about the Empress Dowager in private, saying that at her age, she not only refuses to return power to the Emperor but even interferes in the Emperor's harem affairs. Chuanxi also reported, Consort Shu has quietly sent a trusted servant out of the palace, presumably to contact her natal family, Vice Minister Lin and scholar Lin Yuhan. Consequently, several times Lin Yuhan looked as though he wanted to say something to me but held back. He must have wanted to speak up again, to ask me to plead on Shu Qian's behalf before the Empress Dowager. But remembering how I had slapped him across the face and given him a vicious tongue-lashing last time, he hadn't dared say a word. Ever since we married, I had been sleeping in a separate chamber from him, using the excuse that I was a light sleeper. On this particular day, after drinking several cups of wine, Lin Yuhan shoved open the door to my room. I had just sent the maid to fetch water, so there was no one else present in the chamber. Lin Yuhan scooped me up and tossed me onto the bed. My back struck the edge of the bed frame painfully. I cried out and cursed him. Lin Yuhan, have you lost your mind? He pressed his body over mine, his eyes bloodshot, yet a satisfied smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Princess, since you and I are husband and wife, it's only natural to consummate our marriage. How could that possibly be madness? He ignored my resistance, reached out, and began undoing the fastenings of my robe, his gaze gradually turning wild and manic. Once we become husband and wife in truth, you'll understand that you shouldn't be ordering your husband about but should be serving him carefully instead. Amidst our struggle, I reached toward my head, pulled out my hairpin, and stabbed it viciously into his arm. Lin Yuhan let out a wretched scream and tumbled off the bed, where he was immediately pinned down by guards who had rushed over upon hearing the commotion. Though this was technically Lin Yuhan's manner as the prince consort, everyone by my side, whether guards or maids, had all followed me here from my own princess's manor. I said with an ice-cold expression, Lin Yuhan is intoxicated. He used his drunkenness to act violently and assault this princess. Drag him away and pour plenty of cold water on him to let him sober up. After Lin Yuhan was dragged away, I sat alone on the bed, trembling all over with rage. He had actually intended to force himself on me, thinking this would change my temperament and make me obediently listen to him and put in a good word for Shu Qian. Calculating the time carefully, it was fast approaching the moment from my previous life when Lin Yuhan rebelled against the Empress Dowager. This time, not only would I refuse to help him, but I was going to add fuel to the fire and fan the flames for both him and his precious sister Qian. Not long after, Consort Shu got her wish and gave birth to the first imperial prince. The emperor was ecstatic and immediately elevated consort Shu's rank, making her noble consort Shu. He also prepared to issue a decree for a general amnesty, letting the entire realm know that his beloved noble consort had borne him a fine, healthy son. A general amnesty was something only proclaimed when a new emperor ascended the throne or when appointing a crown prince. The Empress Dowager immediately rejected the emperor's proposal and gave him a severe scolding, saying he was being utterly absurd. She berated him until he trembled with fear, cold sweat streaming down his face. While the Empress Dowager was busy scolding the emperor, an uproar erupted in the empress's palace. It turned out the empress, ignoring everyone trying to stop her, had attempted to hang herself. After being prevented from doing so, she wept and wailed, "The emperor is already treating the first prince as the legitimate heir. Isn't that the same as treating me as though I were already dead?" The Empress Dowager was furious with both sides, muttering, "What shameful behavior! What shameful behavior!" Her legs went weak and she nearly fainted. Fortunately, I was right there and quick to react, stepping forward to support her. The Empress Dowager had actually intended to gradually return governance to the emperor. But unfortunately, her son was a disappointment who couldn't handle this vast ancestral inheritance. Because of this turmoil, the Empress Dowager's plan to slowly transfer power to the emperor slowed down even further. Noble consort Shu felt resentful and often incited the emperor against his mother. Chuanxi sent me regular reports. Noble consort Shu has been speaking ill of the Empress Dowager before the emperor, cursing her for clinging to power despite her age and refusing to let go. Noble consort Shu also said the Empress Dowager dislikes the first prince, and as for future imperial sons and heirs, she fears the Empress Dowager will interfere with them as well. Though the emperor didn't dare openly defy the Empress Dowager, he secretly pushed back by deliberately distancing himself from the empress. Even on the 1st and 15th of each month days when he was supposed to visit the empress's palace, he found excuses not to go. Gradually, several other concubines gave birth to princes and princesses one after another, but there was still no news from the empress. The Empress Dowager took note of this situation and immediately issued a decree: the first prince is to be handed over to the empress to raise. Noble consort Shu is promoted to imperial noble consort. She explained her plan to me. Although the first prince is still young, he is the empress' favorite and will surely become crown prince in the future. The empress has no children and lacks the emperor's favor. In the future, after I'm gone, her only fate will be the cold palace. By handing the first prince to the empress to raise, firstly, he becomes the legitimate eldest son, so inheriting the throne later will be perfectly justified. Secondly, he will surely remember the care the empress gave him and won't treat her unfairly. I had to admire the Empress Dowager's deep foresight. No matter how one examined it, the plan seemed flawless. However, she had left Shu Qian out of her calculations. That woman wasn't someone who would be satisfied with merely the title of imperial noble consort. I had a strong feeling she was about to cause serious trouble. On the winter solstice, the Empress Dowager held a banquet in the palace to celebrate the first prince being placed under the empress's care. Several important ministers from court, myself, and Lin Yuhan were all on the invitation list. There were still about 10 days until the winter solstice when Chuanxi sent word that Shu Qian, who had been promoted to imperial noble consort, was planning to visit Qingjing Temple to offer incense and pray for blessings on the Empress Dowager's behalf. They were about to make their move. I arrived at the temple early, gave instructions to the receiving monk, and then concealed myself inside a side chamber. From there, I could clearly observe every movement in the main chamber next door through a small gap in the wall. Not long after, Lin Yuhan entered the main chamber first, followed shortly by Shu Qian. "Brother Yuhan." Shu Qian collapsed into Lin Yuhan's arms, weeping. "That old hag is so cruel. She actually wants to take away my son." Lin Yuhan held her tightly, the heartache plainly visible on his face. Shu Qian cried for a while, then gradually began speaking of their plot against the Empress Dowager. "We might as well go all the way and just poison that old hag to death. That way, mother and son won't have to be separated." It wasn't merely about avoiding separation. Once the Empress Dowager died, the emperor would be able to take full power, and then she could rely on her son's status to rightfully become the true master of the harem. A troubled expression appeared on Lin Yuhan's face. But poisoning the Empress Dowager, that might be. Brother Yuhan, don't tell me even you are unwilling to help me. Then who else in this world can I rely on? Shu Qian's tears soaked the front of Lin Yuhan's robes. Lin Yuhan hurriedly took out a handkerchief to wipe away her tears. Sister Qian, how could I refuse to help you? I was simply considering how to accomplish it. The imperial kitchens are heavily guarded, we can't possibly infiltrate them. Even if we could, the Empress Dowager is served dozens of dishes at every meal. We wouldn't know which one to poison. We can't possibly poison every single dish, can we? Shu Qian lifted her head, tears staining her face like a pear blossom in rain, looking delicate and pitiful. Brother Yuhan, I have a plan. Listen. After Shu Qian laid out her scheme, Lin Yuhan hesitated. It's a sound plan, but that Princess Minghua has always been cold and distant toward me. I can barely get close to her. Persuading her won't be easy, I'm afraid. Shu Qian caressed Lin Yuhan's face and said coquettishly, if you were to truly get close to her, I wouldn't allow it. Think carefully, there's always a way. As she spoke, she gently removed her outer garment. Brother Yuhan, inside the palace, not a single day passes that I don't think of you. Lin Yuhan couldn't wait to press himself atop her, saying, my treasure, how could I feel any differently? The bed in the Buddhist temple was crude and simple, but they paid it no mind and began making passionate love. That day, after returning to the manor, Lin Yuhan was all smiles. My lady, look what I've brought you. Hearing the word my lady, I found it rather grating. He lifted up a box he was carrying and handed it to me. It was Osmanthus cakes again. He said softly, my lady, ever since I got drunk and caused that scene, we've been quite distant from each other. You have such a generous heart, eat these cakes and stop being angry with me, won't you? It was more than just distant. After that incident, every time I encountered Lin Yuhan, several guards would follow close behind, watching him with intimidating glares. Thank you, Prince Consort. I was already crystal clear about Lin Yuhan's intentions, so I accepted the pastry and tasted a piece. Luxiang Pavilion's Osmanthus cakes were indeed expertly made, sweet, soft, and delightfully chewy. What was even more remarkable was the fragrance of Osmanthus that permeated them. It was already winter now, I wondered how they had managed to preserve the Osmanthus flowers so well. Seeing the approving expression on my face, Lin Yuhan pretended to say casually, actually, these Osmanthus cakes are exceptional, and it's rare for them to be so fragrant even in winter. Why don't we present some to the Empress Dowager when we enter the palace for the winter solstice banquet? My hand holding the Osmanthus cake paused momentarily. Very well. I agreed to Lin Yuhan's suggestion, and when entering the palace on the winter solstice, I personally carried a box of Osmanthus cakes to present to the Empress Dowager. Your Majesty, the Prince Consort specially found these at a pastry shop outside the palace. They're made quite excellently, so he thought to present them to you. Please have a taste and see if they differ from the food served in the palace. Lin Yuhan's expression shifted slightly, as though he hadn't expected me to specifically mention that he was the one who had procured these Osmanthus cakes to present. I offered the box to the emperor as well, with Imperial Noble Consort Shu attending the banquet by his side. Your Majesty, Imperial Noble Consort, please have a taste as well. The Imperial Noble Consort's hand holding her wine cup trembled slightly. I don't particularly care for such things. Thank you, Princess Minghua. The Emperor seemed surprised. Doesn't the Imperial Noble Consort always love these cakes and pastries? Never mind, let me try them for you. The Emperor also picked up a piece. Your Majesty. Lin Yuhan abruptly stood up from his seat, but the Imperial Noble Consort shot him a sharp look. Lin Yuhan froze momentarily, then continued speaking. Your Majesty, these Osmanthus cakes are not only excellent in taste but also rich in the fragrance of Osmanthus. The Emperor nodded and took a bite. I returned to Lin Yuhan's side and placed a piece of cake on each of our plates. Lin Yuhan declined immediately. I've never been fond of sweets, Princess. Please enjoy them yourself. I said nothing more and began eating my piece. The banquet was drawing to a close. The Imperial Noble Consort and Lin Yuhan's eyes kept darting among those who had eaten the Osmanthus cakes, the shock on their faces becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. I gave a cold laugh inwardly. It was time to reveal the truth. I stood gracefully and walked to the center of the banquet hall, raising my voice. Imperial noble consort, prince consort, you were so eager for the Empress Dowager, the Emperor, and this princess to eat these Osmanthus cakes, yet neither of you dared consume even a single bite yourselves. Could it be because these cakes are poisoned? With that single sentence, I created an earth-shattering revelation. I recounted the entire story methodically, starting from the imperial noble consort's complaints about the Empress Dowager, to how the two of them secretly met at Qingjing Temple to devise their poisonous plot. Then, several witnesses were summoned forward. There were eunuchs and palace maids who confirmed the imperial noble consort's resentment toward the Empress Dowager. There was the monk who had arranged the private meeting for the pair at Qingjing Temple. There was also the physician from whom Lin Yuhan had attempted to purchase poison. Finally, there was the box of poisoned Osmanthus cakes themselves, which I had switched early on for a harmless version to present to the Empress Dowager. With each person who came forward to testify, Shu Qian's face turned a shade paler. When I finished speaking, I said word by word, though their original intention was merely to poison the Empress Dowager, just moments ago they didn't prevent the Emperor from eating the cakes either. Presumably, they wished to take advantage of the situation. If both the Empress Dowager and the Emperor met with foul play, they could legitimately enthrone the first prince. I concluded coldly, their hearts are venomous beyond measure. Their crimes deserve death. But in my heart, their crimes went far beyond even these. Having them present the cakes through me was calculated based on my closeness to the Empress Dowager. She surely wouldn't suspect me and would consume the poisoned pastries without hesitation. And if it were later discovered that the cakes were poisoned, they could conveniently shift all blame onto me. The most detestable one was Lin Yuhan. When he said to me, "Princess, please enjoy them yourself," he was willing, for the sake of his precious white moonlight, to push me toward death without even blinking. Ever since I overheard Shu Qian in that side chamber of Qingjing Temple telling Lin Yuhan about the vicious plot to have me present the cakes, I had made up my mind to go along with their murderous scheme, pretending to present the cakes while actually exposing their true nature. At this moment, both Lin Yuhan and Shu Qian looked deathly pale. Lin Yuhan prostrated himself on the ground. It was entirely this guilty subject's idea alone. The imperial noble consort knew nothing of it. This man truly was a lovesick fool, protecting Shu Qian to the point where he didn't even value his own life. Unfortunately, things had reached this point. Who would believe his words now? Shu Qian collapsed beside the emperor, weeping. "Your Majesty." The Empress Dowager said not a word, instead looking toward the emperor. The emperor's face was dark as storm clouds. He remained silent for a long while before finally waving his hand in a gesture of dismissal. With Shu Qian being so viciously ruthless, the emperor's heart must have turned ice cold. The emperor waved his hand, and Lin Yuhan was executed on the spot. Shu Qian was granted death, forced to consume the very box of Osmanthus cakes they themselves had presented. Vice Minister Lin's entire household was executed down to the last member. As for me, even though I was Lin Yuhan's wife, I had disregarded our marital bond and placed righteousness above family, exposing the poisonous plot of these two conspirators. I had saved both the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, and even made the Emperor see Shu Qian's true nature, personally ordering her death. After this incident, the relationship between the Empress Dowager and the Emperor was bound to ease considerably, and the Empress might also experience a resurgence in standing. Not only was I not implicated, but I actually made the Empress Dowager pity me even more, feeling sorry that I, like her, had become a widow at such a young age. "Minghua, if you wish to remarry in the future, I will certainly support you fully. If you don't wish to remarry, well, our dynasty has plenty of talented young men. If any catch your eye, feel free to boldly bring them into your princess's manor as consorts. If anyone dares to gossip, I will personally silence them." This was essentially giving me an imperial decree allowing me to take male consorts by royal command. I'll dutifully obey the decree. Tomorrow I'll go scouting around to see if any handsome young men catch my eye. From now on, I'll contentedly live as Princess Minghua, enjoying endless glory, wealth, and a lifetime of peace and prosperity. If you enjoyed this tale of revenge and rebirth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for Lotus Tale Studios. Drop a comment below telling me, would you have exposed the poison plot, Or would you have chosen a different path? What other Rebirth revenge stories would you like to hear? I read every single comment, and your suggestions help shape future stories. Join our community of story lovers, and let's explore more captivating tales together. Until next time, this is Lotus Tale Studios, where every story blooms with intrigue.